Alright, what's up, Dragon Brood? Today we're basically taking a look at what's officially day 2 of previews for Bloomburrow, and honestly, after seeing everything we saw yesterday, it looks like today is starting to bring everything together, and we're starting to see the direction of each of these different creature types. So let's hop to it. I just realized I said hop to it in a set with rabbits. That was not intentional, but here we go. First thing is a rabbit. So Bravekin Duo, it's a 1 mana 1/1, pay 1, tap it. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. For the most part, this probably won't be played. I think we already saw one better 1 mana rabbit, so we'll probably be playing that in that slot. And the fact this only can be used as a sorcery, which is unfortunate, but it does trigger the abilities of the mouse or the mice, I guess, every single turn. So that's kind of cool too. But generally, this is probably going to be more of a limited player. Hop to it. This is a 3 mana sorcery, 2 colorless and a white. Create 3 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens. We've had versions of this card, I think, all at different types of white costs for 3, and it's okay. It might be better here in the sense that we do have decks that will care about tokens, want you to have more creatures on the battlefield, that sort of thing, so it might get some fringe play, but it wouldn't be anything too crazy. Shoreline Looter. It is a colorless and a blue for a 1/1, can't be blocked rat rogue. Has threshold, so whenever you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, when the looter deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, then discard a card unless 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. Oh, interesting. So this, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, then discard a card unless you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So this ability reads like it works even when you don't have threshold. So you draw and discard unless you have 7. Wow, that's weird. Usually when you see something with threshold, it doesn't trigger until you have 7. So I may be misreading that, but it is what it is. I think the card's probably okay, but I think we're going to have some other rats you're going to want to play in this type of deck. All right, just fell. Colorless and a black sorcery. Destroy target creature. I mean, it's a sorcery, so there's that, but it does just outright kill anything. So yeah, this will likely get some play. Also, check out that art. It's actually kind of sweet with like the owl and I don't know, is it like in a tuxedo or something doing magician things? I don't know what's going on here, but it's kind of cool looking. Cash grab, colorless and a green for an instant. Mill 4 cards. You may put a permanent from among those cards milled this way into your hand. If you control a squirrel, or return a squirrel card to your hand, you create a food. Alright, so this is an instant. It does mill, so there's that if you're playing any type of self-mill option. It does allow you to return stuff to your hand if you're looking for something, so it's like a pseudo-search type card. It can create a food, which the squirrel care about. So maybe this gets some constructed play, but only particularly in squirrel decks. But it's an interesting card nonetheless. Alright, another class card, actually. We saw one of these in the preview stuff from yesterday, but this is Hunter's Talent. It's a colorless and a green. When Hunter's Talent enters, target creature you control deals combat damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So you have a bite spell here, which is kind of cool. So it can be played just for that, which isn't bad. At sorcery speed, but still. Colorless and a green, go to level 2, and then whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample to end of turn, which is pretty solid. And then you can pay 4 to go to level 3, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Yeah, this card's actually more than reasonable. Like, if you're looking for another bite, fight type spell you want to put into the deck, you could just play this. Again, only works at sorcery speed, but you can go ahead and play this, and then it has upside of possibly giving something a bonus and trample, or even letting you draw more cards later. So, yeah, nothing really to complain about on this card. It's actually kind of sweet. Thorn Vault Forager, colorless and a green for a 2/2. You tap it to add a green. You can tap it and forage, so exile 3 cards from graveyard or sacrifice a food when you forage, and that'll let you add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Or you can pay 4 and tap it, search your library for a squirrel, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, this card's obviously good, right? It's a 2 mana 2/2 that taps for mana. We have several varieties of that. Potentially taps for 2 mana, because there's a lot of ways that can happen. And then not even at sorcery speed, so you can just wait to your opponent's end step, just go search for a creature. Like, yeah, this thing, especially if you're playing squirrels, will get some play. It's a squirrel ranger, by the way. But honestly, there's some other decks where it might just get played for the mana portion. So, yeah, this is just a decent card. Wear Down, colorless and a green, sorcery. You can gift a card, but it destroys target artifact or enchantment if the gift was promised. Instead, destroy 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. Ooh, I like this. It's a sorcery speed, so it's not instant, which is unfortunate, but having the ability to destroy an artifact or an enchantment, or potentially 2 of them, comes down to really what the format looks like. If the metagame turns out we're playing against a bunch of, I don't know, synthesizer decks or something where they have multiple artifacts that you want to get rid of, then like maybe this card becomes viable. Or even enchantments, I guess. Though the main deck that plays a lot of enchantments is actually rotating out, so you probably won't see that, but who the heck knows. But just as a thing to remove artifacts and enchantments, probably not the card you're going to go for. But the upside is pretty nice if the metagame's right. Cindering Cutthroat. 2 and I guess Rakdos split mana here, so 3 total for a 3/2 Lizard Assassin. When it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it if an opponent lost life this turn. So that seems to be a thing with some of the lizards and or assassins I believe that we've seen so far. If your opponent's lost life, something happens. But you can pay 1 and a Rakdos mana. It gains menace until end of turn. Again, this is probably more of a limited player. 3 mana for a 3/2, even if it does come in as a 4/2, is kind of nice. If you're already doing like the hardcore, super aggressive aggro stuff, then it's probably good. But outside of that, don't know yet. But I could see some decks where this could actually get some fringe play, so I'm not going to count it out entirely. Corpseberry Cultivator. This sounds gross, but colorless and green, black, so your choice of Golgari mana there. So 3 mana for a 2/3 for a Squirrel Warlock. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may forage. Alright, whenever you forage, put a +1/+1 counter on Corpseberry Cultivator. Interesting. So it's just a 3 mana 2/3 that you could possibly sacrifice a food or stuff from your graveyard, put a +1/+1 on every turn. Yeah, not excited about this. Again, maybe in limited if I'm going hardcore on squirrels, but nothing for a constructed play here, I don't think. Mindrill Assailant. I almost read that wrong. Mindrill Assailant, 2 colorless, blue, black. So 4 mana for a 2/5 Rat Warlock. Threshold, as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, Mindrill Assailant gets +3/+0, so it could be a 5/5. You can pay 3 to surveil 1. Yeah, again, kind of a limited card. Not likely to see much play in constructed. It's just the cost for what you get is a bit much, and it takes a while to set up to get the good parts of it. Moonrise Cleric. Colorless, white, black. So some Orzhov mana for a 2/3 Bat Cleric. It has flying, and when it attacks, you gain a life. It's a 2/3 flyer for 3, so that makes it better. But probably only if there's some version of the life gain deck still in standard, because then you're just gaining a life every time you attack. But outside of that, I don't think this will get a lot of play, even in bats. But maybe if bat just needs a curve filler, that's probably the only other way here, I think. Lots of split mana today. So Seed Pod Squire, 3 colorless, white-blue, for a 3/3 flying bird scout. Whenever Seed Pod Squire attacks, target creature you control without flying gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So interesting, we saw another card yesterday that cared about non-flyers getting bonuses. I still don't know what this build is going to look like yet. Maybe you're trying to pair it with rabbits or something in the same colors. I don't know, but we'll see. This one I can't really call, because 4 mana for a 3/3 flyer with upside isn't the worst, but it's also not the best with all the options we'll have available in standard. So we kind of have to see if Birds really wants this or not. On that last one, I also just realized there could be a thing where maybe we get some bird hatchlings or bird eggs, and then giving those +1/+1 could matter. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what the rest of the set reveals. Stormwatch or Stormcatch Mentor. It's a color. Actually, what am I? I can't even read the card. Stormcatch Mentor. It's blue-red for a 1/1 otter wizard with haste and prowess. Instant and sorcery spells cost you 1 less to cast. Yeah, this is just fine. Like, it's an undersized 2 mana creature, obviously, but it does have haste, it does have prowess, and it makes all your spells cheaper. So if you're doing the otter spell thing, you'll probably end up playing some number of copies of this. Tempest Angler. 1 colorless, blue-red for a 2/2. So you have 3 mana 2/2. Otter Wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Tempest Angler. Yeah, this one's interesting because if you are doing the heavy spell thing, this obviously gets a counter every turn, which is super nice. But at the same time, you have a bunch of stuff with prowess or triggers your prowess stuff in some way, so you may not need this, but this is at least probably passable, if nothing else, if you're on a budget. Veteran Guard Mouse, 3 colorless, red white for a 3/4. So 4 mana, 3/4 Mouse Soldier. And its Valiant ability is whenever Veteran Guard Mouse becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, it gets +1/+0, gains first strike, and scry 1. I mean, that's a good upside. Basically turns into a 4/4 first striker and you get to scry. Like, that's pretty cool. I don't know. I got to see what else we have for 4 mana first before we decide if this is what the mouse deck wants. Possible, though, that this is what the mouse deck wants, but I think we got to see everything else first. Wandertail Mentor. It's a red-green 2/2 raccoon bard, which is hilarious. Cool picture. Whenever you expend 4, so you spend your 4th mana on the turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on Wandertail Mentor. You can tap it for red or green. Yeah, this card's just good. I mean, it's a 2 mana 2/2, which we've seen already from another card in the set that's kind of becoming the standard. But a 2 mana 2/2, tap for red or green, so it helps with your color fixing. And it's a raccoon, so it fits a theme deck for the set. And you possibly get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Sure, count me in. Brambleguard Captain, 3 colorless and a red. So 4 mana for a 2/3. Mouse Soldier. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +X/+0, where X is Brambleguard Captain's power. Ooh, now see, this is a little more enticing than the other 4 mana one that we saw. Mostly because it gets to give something, anything you want, +2/+0. And actually, does it even say other creature? No, it just says target creature. So it could make itself a 4/3, I guess. Yeah, this is interesting. It comes into play. You can still use the ability on something else that's attacking. Some of those things will have first strike or whatever because they have their own Valiant abilities. I think I'm more likely to play this one than the other one, unless I just need a bigger creature. Sugarcoat, 2 colorless and a blue for an enchantment aura, has flash. Enchant a creature or a food, which is interesting because there are food things that aren't necessarily tokens. Enchanted Permanent is a colorless food artifact with the food ability, pay 2, sack it, gain 3 life, and loses all other types of abilities. So interesting. Has flash for 3 mana. You basically turn something into a food for 3 mana. So it's pseudo removal. All right, this is probably playable. I mean, it's not hard removal, but kinda. So, like, yeah, why not? Quick Tusk Boar, 3 colorless, red, elemental boar, reach, trample, haste, 5/5. Well, I love that it has a simple text box. 5 mana, 5/5, reach, trample, haste. That's actually really good for what you're getting. And if you have something that cares about haste, like the Samet deck or something, I feel like recently we talked about being unsure of like what we want in that 4 or 5 mana spot. This could maybe be one of those types of cards. Don't get me wrong, like it's not impressive, but it is 5 mana 5/5 with trample, haste, reach, so it does check several boxes. Mabel's Metal, colorless and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Up to one other target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Yeah, if you're playing the mice, you're definitely playing this, right? I mean, you just get to target 2 things. One of them gets 2/2, one of them gets 1/1, and they both get to trigger their Valiant abilities. So yeah, and it's at instant speed even, so you can create some ugly combats for your opponent. Like yeah, this card, I'm in on it. Zoraline, Cosmos Collar, colorless white, black. So 3 mana, 3/3, flying vigilance. This is already great on rate before you even read what the card does. So a bat cleric that's a 3/3 for 3, with flying, with vigilance. Whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain a life. Alright. And then when it enters or attacks, you may pay a colorless and a black and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Wow, this card's great. Like, okay, again, 3 mana 3/3 with flying and vigilance. Solid on its own. Whenever a bat you control attacks, you gain a life. So each bat will gain you a life when it attacks. And then on top of that, When this enters or attacks, you can pay 2 more mana, so you could pay 5 potentially when you cast it, to return something 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it even says just non-land permanent. It doesn't even have to be a creature. So an enchantment, artifact, whatever, still qualifies. So yeah, this is... I mean, you could return a land too if you have a land that actually... because oh no, it says non-land permanent, so you don't get to do that, at least. But yeah, this card, lots of value here in this thing. I'm into it. Manifold Mouse, colorless and a red for a mouse soldier. 1/2, it has offspring 2, so you can pay an additional 2 and make a 1/1 token copy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target mouse you control gains your choice of double strike or trample until end of turn. Yeah, this card, we've already seen another 1 mana mouse, actually 2, that one that was really good, one that was okay. But being able to trigger the Valiant of the other one, I think it was the one that maybe, was that the one that got like a +1/+1 when it's targeted or whatever? But either way, the fact that you can target something, then it also gets double strike on turn 2. So you're attacking for no less than probably 4. If you get the turn 1 guy, turn 2 guy, like, this is solid. And then later in the game, you get 2 copies of things that get to give 2 different things, double strike or trample. Yeah, I'm into it. This is a pretty cool card. Definitely will see a lot of play. Consumed by Greed, a colorless black instant. Gift a card, so you can promise to give your opponent a card. Target opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. If the gift was promised, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Wow. So this is 3 mana, opponent sacrifices their largest creature. And the option of you could give them a card to return something from your graveyard to your hand. Don't know how much we're going to play this, but it definitely has some real upside to it. I could be interested in this in the right decks. Right, Valley Rally, 2 colorless and a red for an instant. You can gift a food. Creatures you control get +2/+0 till end of turn. If the gift was promised, target creature you control gains first strike until end of turn. I kind of like the balance of this, right? So all your things get +2/+0. We've seen several versions of that. I think we even still have some that are legal and standard right now for 3 mana. But the potential upside is you can give something else first strike, maybe if you're trying to protect a certain thing or make the blocks bad for your opponent. Also targeting and triggering Valiant, if you're willing to give them a food. Which, the food is also a little bit of a downside, because obviously they can crack it and gain 3 life. But if they're tapped out when you do it, then maybe this is the attack that gets you across the finish line. I don't know. But it's an interesting card. I'm not sure it's going to see a ton of play unless there are no sizable mice. Then you'll want to play this so you can punch through or fight against bigger creatures, most likely. All right, couldn't find the best picture of this one, but I'd seen this on social media earlier today. So this one was Sunpine Lynx, 2 colorless, red for a 5/4 elemental cat. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. When it enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. Red might be going a little bit bigger, y'all. Like, now, 2 things too. There was a small debate on if we should refer to this as price of progress or price of progress. Just a reference to the price of progress card from years ago that has the ability to deal damage for the number of non-basics. That said, this is pretty solid, right? You're going to pay 4 mana for a 5/4 creature already. You get to deal some amount of damage because almost all decks are playing some number of non-basics, right? So let's assume you do a minimum of 2, probably up to as much. I'll be honest, it could be 4, 5, or 6, depending on where you're at that stage of the game. Like, this card could be a finisher all by itself. The damage can't be prevented. Your opponent can't gain any life. So whatever they're going to do, they have to do it with this on the stack. Yeah, this card's really strong. And I will say, this doesn't even need to be played in mono red. This could be a Gruul finisher. This could be a Rakdos finisher. It could be in several different types of decks and still have some power to it. Brazen Collector. Colorless and a red for a 2/1 raccoon rogue. It does have first strike, and whenever it attacks you, add a red. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. This is just a solid body. I mean, a 2 mana, 2/1 first strike, hard to block, fine on rate, and then you just get an extra mana each time you attack with it. Like, yeah, this card can get some action for sure. Heartfelt Hero, 1 red, 1/1. So here's another 1/1 mouse. Whenever Heartfelt Hero becomes target of spell or ability you control for the first time, you put a +1/+1 counter on this one, so it just gets a permanent 1/1. And when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So it kind of does the scamp thing, right? That we already have in standard. So this is a 1-mana 1/1. Each time it's targeted for the first time on a turn, it gets a counter. And then if it dies, it just gets to do bonus damage. Like, yeah, absolutely, people are playing this card, right? Like, I would assume mostly mouse decks are going to play it. There could be a few non-mice decks, depending on how many things you have to target your stuff. If you want to double down on the scamp type ability in your deck, could possibly just go into those. But generally speaking, yeah, this is just a solid 1/1 card as an uncommon even. So yeah, this will definitely get some play. Brightblade Stoat, colorless and a white for a 2/2 Weasel Soldier. I don't think we've had a Weasel. Maybe I'll have to do a search after this. But honestly, it's weird to have it in this set where it doesn't match any of the themed creatures. That said, it is a 2-mana 2/2. It has First Strike and Lifelink. Simple text box, but a good one. 2-mana 2/2 with First Strike and Lifelink is playable. So I'll say that. It could be in some type of white aggro, Boros aggro type thing. Just getting that life every turn is big. Hard for your opponents to block early because it has First Strike. If you can pump it up at all, it's just a nuisance now because now it's a bad block and you get to gain the life. It's like, yeah, this card's more than reasonable. Then we have Iridescent Vine Lasher, 1 black for a 1/2 Lizard Assassin. It has Offspring 2, so make a copy so you can get a 1/1 token. Landfall, whenever a land you control enters. I think this is the first landfall deck we've seen in the set. When a land you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. Ooh, and you get the chance to Offspring this one on turn 3? Nice. Yeah, if you're playing lizards, why not? Right? I mean, you just get to deal damage, possibly 2 damage, because each one will trigger. It's a 1/2 for 1, so if you play it early, it can block a few things. It's not great, it's not bad. Yeah, this is just reasonable upside on a 1-mana 1/2 body. One of the things I would say as a takeaway from today's previews is that this might help a lot of people's budget building, which is good considering how close the window is between this set and Duskmorn, which I think is about 8 weeks. Because there are a lot of uncommons here that were really good. Some that were themed for some of the new creature themes, but some that were just playable, like that one class card that could be a bite spell, right? Like that's a quality uncommon you could play, and it has good upside to it. There was a few cards like that. The Black Kill spell that just kills anything, like that was an uncommon. So like lots of stuff people are going to be able to play that's very good. So thumbs up for that so far. I'm sure there'll be some crazy more rares and mythics as the preview season goes on. But yeah, this is actually a good one. I will say, though, if you didn't see yesterday's previews in the debut stream, I'll link that here so you can have access to it. And if you're looking for a bunch of cards that are already rotation ready, I'll try to have that playlist linked as well, so you can just see a whole bunch of decks that you can just add some cards from here into those and be ready to go. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.